Hey guys, welcome back to Derezed Gaming News on Clownfish TV. This is Kneon, and yeah, we're going to move the Derezed Gaming News, I think, over to the main Clownfish TV channel. Seems to fit in better over here because we're dealing with news. And then Clownfish Gaming, I think we're going to keep strictly a gaming channel with occasional, we'll do like an occasional roundup, I think, of news. But the day-to-day news we're going to keep over here. So for those of you who are not familiar with Derez, this is where we do podcasts and we do just kind of general news. Clownfish TV is more opinionated. This is just strictly the news. Not saying that I'm not going to sneak a couple opinions in here and there, but this is just talking about things that maybe didn't warrant a Clownfish TV video or a podcast episode. So there we go, guys. So if you're looking for more news, go out to news.clownfishtv.com. We actually have a whole Derezed section out there. We've been publishing news under the Derez brand now for like 2 years. So if this is the first time you're hearing about it, that means you don't actually follow everything that we do. We're going to try to change that. So yeah, this is coming from Niche Gamer. We're going to talk about tariffs. We're going to talk about game controllers. We're going to talk about tariffs in the board game industry. Again, everybody's just losing their minds, right? And I mean, I get it. I do get it because these companies had a certain amount of money budgeted, and then all of a sudden it's like, damn, everything's going to cost twice as much as we thought it was going to cost. So this is 8-Bit Do, which I love these guys. I know some people are complaining about their controllers. I love their controllers. I have probably half of these, multiple versions of half of these. I love the Super NES style controller in particular. I use that almost exclusively on my Switch. But they're going to halt shipments to the U.S. because of the tariffs. So due to the tariffs, only products from our U.S. warehouse are available for shipping to the United States in the now deleted statement on their store site. China warehouse shipping is temporarily paused, they said. It remains unclear if this is still 8-Bit Do's shipping policy. So they've reached out. That would be Niche Gamer. They reached out to the company for comment. Most of 8-Bit Do's products are stored in China, which has been targeted with a 145% tariff by Trump since April 9th. So, I mean, it's so weird. And we're going to talk about this with gaming, and we've talked about it, at length on multiple Clownfish TV episodes, that everything collapsed as fast as it did. Like, all these companies were all like, hey, there's tariffs. Everything's going to cost a lot more. Let's get the hell out of business. Let's just shut down. Let's just, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just insane to see how fast this happened. They said certain companies like Apple were given exemptions by the Trump administration. Well, it helps if you go to the inauguration, right? They said those exemptions did not extend to anyone making game consoles or accessories. Yeah, and this is where there's a lot of confusion. Like they thought Nintendo was going to get off because they're like, well, it's a game console and not technology like, Apple. It's not a cell phone. It's not a laptop. But apparently a lot of the Nintendo consoles come from Vietnam anyway, which they probably are from China, just by way of Vietnam, right? But they said 8-Bit Do is the latest in a line of corporations that has had to suspend deliveries to America due to the ongoing tariffs. Last week, they talked about Good Smile halting their plastic figure deliveries. Nintendo had temporarily halted the release of the Switch 2 in America in order to assess the impact of tariffs. People thought the Nintendo Switch 2 was going to cost like $650. No, it's going to be the Xbox. We're going to talk about that in another video. But yeah, all the prices are going up. I mean, you look up tariffs and games, and it's just like doom and gloom all over the place. Everybody's like, oh my God, everything's going to cost so much more money. So this is coming from the Minnesota Star Tribune. Trump's China tariffs paralyzing for Minnesota board game companies. Well, now here's the I just want to put this out there, not to rub salt in the wound or tell you how to run your business, but I do know that the American board game manufacturers, most of them are in the Midwest. Like, you literally could just drive the van to the factory and pick the stuff up, but they don't produce all the parts. That's the thing. A lot of these games now have these like really complex figures and stuff like that. Like, come on games. They're all like little mini figures, and the stuff is really expensive to produce here. But if you're talking just, card games and stuff like that stuff can be produced here. In fact, Hasbro, WotC, printing a lot of their Magic cards here. But here's another one that said they're probably going to go out. Like I said, it hasn't even been a month. It hasn't even been a month, and everybody's like, we're going out of business. We're not even going to stay in business. Like, oh my God, there's tariffs, guys. That's it. We're done. We're out of here. It's over. Game over. We're done. We're going out of business, everybody. We're not going to fulfill our Kickstarters. It's all over. And it's so weird to see. And again, I'm not going to tell you how to run your business, right? And I understand. Trust me, I understand the problem in getting stuff sourced here in the U.S. We've run into this ourselves. But just to like throw your hands up in the air and just be like, oh, we're done. We're out of business. Trump's China tariffs paralyzing for Minnesota board game companies. Atlas Games in Duluth and Leader Games in St. Paul both say they need to rely on Chinese manufacturers, and the 145% tariff has them pulling back. Again, just not to be that guy, but you're in the Midwest, and that's where the factories are that make the games. I'm just saying. Our whole industry is reeling because we don't know. Everything might change on a dime, said Atlas Games owner John Nephew. It's been a whirlwind of chaos and awfulness. Under the current plan, the company could lose money if they switch back to U.S. manufacturers. They know they will. Yeah, it is going to cost you a lot more. We ran into that with printing our books with Crimson Wren. Wound up costing us twice as much to print as we were expecting, because we wound up having to find a U.S. printer because it was during the pandemic, and it cost twice as much too because everybody was going to the U.S. printers, and then that U.S. printer wound up snorting some of the money up their nose or something. It was it was a very complicated situation, right? We're not going to use that printer again. We are going to use U.S. printers going forward because of this, and we're just going to have to realize, like, this is what the books are going to cost us. They're going to have to, price it accordingly. And a lot of people are just going to have to adjust. And I think they're going to have to cut out the middleman. That means game stores. You're going to have to sell more direct to consumer, I guess. I don't know what to tell you. This is the new reality for now. I mean, if they get a deal worked out, it could change. Under the current tariff plan, the companies would lose money if they switch back to U.S. manufacturers. Okay. What's worse is the soaring costs come as tabletop gaming was having a renaissance of sorts. Sales climbed during the pandemic. And just a year ago, analysts predicted the global market would more than double to $32 billion by 2032. But that does not necessarily mean it's these guys. And that's not to be a dick. I'm saying, we're talking the big companies, the Hasbros and the whatever. But even Hasbro's taking a hit. Magic is doing really well, but Dungeons and Dragons isn't the one that's hot. Atlas is not the only game company feeling paralyzed by the current economic situation. Leader Games in St. Paul is holding back on future investment to hold cash in reserve to ensure payroll can be covered. The company has slowed printing considerably and will depend on its backstock. Leader Games was printing an expansion for ARCs in China when tariffs started. A majority of those games will now be sent to the European Union. Only 4,000 of the 20,000 printed will be available in the U.S. Wow, that's wild. Why the current model works. Children in China making games cheaply. Now, Atlas Games publishes role-playing board and card games. Board games are the most effective because of the ecology of manufacturing facilities in China. That actually, okay, so that is true. And I've people are like, you're talking out both sides of your mouth. No, it's true. Most board games are manufactured in China. They specialize in that. They specialize in making those little components, little pieces, all that stuff. They can do it more efficiently than they can do it in the U.S. We don't have the ability in the U.S. to manufacture everything yet. But, and really where it's going to trip a lot of these guys up is they already had stuff made. It's already sitting over there. They're just not going to bring it over. In fact, we're going to talk about this. This is the OP. The OP games. Like, are we talking like OP like the surfer brand? Like I had OP t-shirts in junior high. The OP may send 15 containers of games back to China, according to ICV2. 15 containers of games. They've halted all other China-based production. CEO Dane Chapman told the New York Times. Columnist Brett Stevens in a recent interview, the games were shipped from China when tariffs were 20%, but the increase in the tariff rate to 145 means the company is going to have to pay an additional $920,000 to bring to the U.S. That's almost $1 million. And that's the problem. If you've already put the order in and you already have your stuff sitting there, and if you want to warehouse it like Come On Games, like they're warehousing all their stuff, then you're kind of screwed, right? Because, I mean, you're on the hook to pay for these games, but then to actually bring them here. And that's, people don't understand what the tariffs are. The tariff is basically the business owner, whoever's importing the product, right? You have to pay the due. So they're actually taxing the business owner, because when you pick it up, you got to cut a check for whatever the amount is, and it could double your production cost. You'd be like, well, I thought I was going to spend $500,000 to publish a bunch of games, and they get here and I got to cough up another $500,000. Oh my God. But then there's a whole discussion about this. We talked about this with the guy who did High Noon. He's like, there are things you can do to avoid this. You're just not doing them because you're used to just 0% tariff. Chapin told Stevens he thought it was unfair for big tech companies to get exemptions to tariffs, while his much smaller business has nothing but bad choices to make. He noted that Apple has $60 billion in cash in the bank and has a market cap that is 231 times larger than the two largest toy companies combined. The toy industry is a blip economically. Yeah, the toy industry is getting hit hard because all that stuff is made in China. Yet we've been put in deep peril by the chaotic and random execution of trade policy. Like other game publishers, Chapin, or is it Chapin or Chapin? It might be Chapin. Chapin said he has no domestic manufacturing options for the products the OP sources from China. That's the rub. This is what I'm trying to get people to understand. Like, I think a lot of these people, or some of these people, maybe not a lot of them, but some of them would like to make stuff in the US. They just can't. Because they don't produce those components here. Action figures, very cost prohibitive to produce them in the US. That's why Hasbro, Mattel, all these companies send them overseas. I think other companies will start producing stuff too. Maybe someday in the US they'll do it. This is Columbus, Ohio. Trump's China tariffs, that's what they're calling them, the China tariffs, could destroy Columbus Gaming Company. So all the gaming companies are just like, oh my God. So this is a guy who did Don't Get Stabbed. I've never heard of that one. He designed to be a funny twist on classic horror films. 6 years later, a Chinese trade war is in full swing, and McLaughlin says it feels like the federal government is metaphorically stabbing him and his business in the back instead of his game's mascot, Stabby. Don't Get Stabbed. I have seen this one. So he's a founder of Rookie Mage Games. He imports most of the parts of his games from China, where printers are willing to do small runs of cards and other game pieces. China was hit with a 145% tariff. Yeah, see, that's the thing. They can do this stuff economically too. Like, maybe you can get it manufactured here in the US, but you're not going to be able to just say, hey, I need 500 of these or 1,000 of these. They're going to be like, no, you need to make like 10,000 of these, and then we'll talk, right? So before the trade war escalated, McLaughlin said he paid $15,000 for his inventory for the year, which included a 20% tariff of roughly $3,000. McLaughlin were to buy the same supplies today, it's going to cost him $22,000. So he joined the class action lawsuit. They're trying to sue Trump because of tariffs. He said it's impossible to plan for everything. I'm not going to let my hard work get ruined for a political stunt. And they're talking about Stonemaier Games. We talked about Stonemaier Games before. There's a bunch of them now. Stonemaier Games, Spielcraft, XYZ Games, Tinker House. Again, Hasbro is adjusting. WotC's adjusting. They're like, yeah, we're going to print our cards in the US and we're going to pivot to digital. Like, we're not even going to go there. Oh yeah, and the toys are going to cost a lot more. So this is, speaking of Stonemaier, they're the ones who started the lawsuit, I believe, against the Trump administration. Good luck with that, I guess. But they said the Pacific Legal Foundation, they're the law firm bringing the lawsuit seeking to overturn the recently applied tariffs on imports to China on behalf of Stonemaier Games. They shared information. So they're trying to get other game companies involved. The rationale for the application of the tariffs was authority granted by the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which provides that under a national emergency declaration, the president may take steps to deal with any unusual and extraordinary threat to national security, foreign policy, or the economy. The statute does not mention tariffs, an authority exclusively granted to Congress by the Constitution. I don't know. I'm not a legal expert. You tell me. It's never been used for that purpose in the past. I know he was all about the tariffs before he got elected. I mean, I knew he was going to do them. I guess I just didn't think it was going to happen that fast, right? Like, I thought they were going to roll them out. Personally, I thought they were going to roll them out. Like, okay, in the next 5-10 years, we're going to, kind of put the heat on foreign manufacturers, and then we're going to try to set up shop here in the U.S., which I'm all for. But this is just like, boom, we're turning on the tariffs. So the foundation describes itself as a public interest law firm that defends Americans' liberties when threatened by government overreach and abuse. They had 20 cases at the Supreme Court since the founding in 1973. It aligns with, this is interesting. It aligns with conservative causes on many issues. Oh, and has ties to the Koch brothers, according to the New York Times. The pairing shows the breadth of the opposition, which brings together wide-ranging constituencies. So this isn't like, this is weird. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm going to be honest. I don't know how this is going to play out, because I can tell you, as somebody on the ground and as somebody who talks to a lot of business owners, and somebody that's in Western Pennsylvania, which is known for, historically was known for manufacturing, but all the manufacturing is gone now. Thank you very much. There are a lot of people that are really pissed off about this. They were blindsided by it. I just had a conversation with somebody the other day who was like, yeah, I voted for Trump and now my business is toast. And they would make stuff in the US if they could, but the factories are rusty. It's the Rust Belt. They call it the Rust Belt, right? It's because everything's rusty. You can't just like turn it back on, but we'll see how it works. But I think game prices, tabletop prices are going to go up. I think video game prices are going to go up. We got another video coming up about the insane price hikes on the Xbox. So stick around for that one too, guys. Please subscribe. Again, go to news.clownfishtv.com for more news, and keep an eye out for more derezed videos. We'll talk later.